The wind clawed at Anna's coat like icy fingers, the bitter cold slicing straight through to her bones. She stumbled forward, boots slipping against the slick frozen pavement, her breath coming out in ragged clouds. The hospital's fluorescent lights still burned behind her, a distant memory now swallowed by the storm. Every step felt heavier, not just from exhaustion, but from the hollow ache gnawing at her chest. She pulled her scarf tighter around her face, but it did little to block the sting of the wind, or the loneliness that clung to her like a second skin. Around her, the world had gone still, swallowed whole by snow and silence. Anna was utterly alone, her only companions the howling wind and the deafening thud of her own heartbeat. As Anna trudged on, the storm outside seemed to mirror the one raging within her. Her mind replayed the harsh words, the slammed door, the final devastating silence that had followed. The breakup had left a jagged wound inside her, one she tried to stitch up with long hospital shifts and empty smiles. But out here, with nothing but darkness and the storm, she couldn't run from it. Every step forward felt like dragging a chain behind her, heavy with memories she wished she could forget. Tears threatened to freeze on her lashes, but she blinked them away, forcing herself onward. The streetlights, dim and weary, flickered overhead, casting broken, jittering shadows across the snow-laden ground. Anna glanced around, heart tightening at the way the world twisted and shifted with each flicker. Buildings loomed like silent sentinels, and the swirling snow blurred the edges of everything familiar. In this half-lit world, she felt ghost-like herself, a hollow figure drifting through a city that barely remembered her existence. Her boots crunched loudly in the oppressive stillness, each sound a reminder of how truly alone she was tonight. Anna hunched her shoulders against the biting wind, wrapping her arms tighter around her trembling body. A single, aching thought circled through her mind. What if I just disappeared into this storm? It would be so easy to let the snow swallow her whole, to surrender to the numbness that crept up her spine. No one would notice. No one would care. The idea was terrifying and oddly comforting. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the wind buffet her, imagining herself dissolving into the storm, leaving her pain behind. The city around her breathed with eerie silence, the usual hum of life smothered under a heavy blanket of snow. Yet, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every alleyway, every empty window seemed to harbor unseen eyes, their silent stares pressing down on her back. She quickened her pace, boots skidding over the ice, pulse pounding in her ears. The storm howled louder, as if mocking her fear, but the sensation lingered, chilling her more than the wind ever could. Anna passed the deserted park, its benches half buried in snow, the playground swings eerily motionless. Everything around her was frozen, locked in a cold, unfeeling stillness that mirrored the desolation in her heart. She pressed a hand to her chest, as if to protect the fragile thing inside, but it offered no warmth. Her footsteps slowed, her spirit sagging under the weight of it all. She was as much a part of this frozen, abandoned world as the ice clinging stubbornly to the barren trees. Just as Anna tried to summon the strength to move again, a sound sliced through the wind, a tiny, desperate whimper. She froze, every muscle in her body locking tight. Her eyes scanned the swirling snow, heart hammering against her ribs. The whimper came again, weaker but unmistakable, carried by the cruel wind straight to her ears. A shiver of fear and something else, something almost like hope, rushed through her. In the midst of her own pain, something, or someone, needed her. And Anna, despite everything, couldn't ignore it. The wind howled like a wounded animal, whipping the snow into furious spirals around Anna as she trudged through the empty park. her scarf pressed tight against her mouth, but the icy air still bit at her skin. She squinted into the storm, about to quicken her pace, when something made her stop cold. There, barely distinguishable against the colorless landscape, was a shadow. A dark, unmoving form hunched against the base of a barren oak tree. Anna's breath caught in her throat. At first, she thought it might be a pile of debris, but then, ever so slightly, it moved. Her heart stuttered. She strained her eyes against the blizzard, and recognition struck like a lightning bolt. A German shepherd, almost camouflaged against the winter wasteland, lying still as stone, the snow gathering thick over its frail body. Anna took a hesitant step forward, the crunch of her boots muffled by the howling wind. As she drew closer, the dog's condition became painfully clear. Its ribs jutted out sharply beneath matted fur, and its head drooped low, too weak even to lift properly. But what seized Anna's heart was the shepherd's eyes, hollow, desperate, and glistening with the silent plea she felt deep in her bones. The world around them blurred, the storm forgotten for a moment. There was only the dog, shivering violently, staring up at her without a sound. No bark, no whine, only a profound, aching sorrow that wrapped around Anna's chest, squeezing tight. 1,000 reasons to turn away screamed in her mind, but none of them mattered anymore. She had seen him, and he had seen her. Anna crept a little closer, every nerve alight with tension. But as she reached out a hand, the German shepherd's lips curled back just slightly, a low, warning growl rumbling from deep within his fragile chest. It wasn't vicious, it was terrifying. Anna froze mid-step, her own instincts flaring. Fear prickled at her skin as she locked eyes with the dog. There was no malice there, only raw, unfiltered survival. The swirling snow filled the silence between them, thick and heavy. Anna's heart pounded against her ribs, an echo of the shepherd's trembling body. In that moment they were two creatures, both equally lost, equally scared, caught in a storm much bigger than themselves. The growl unearthed something buried deep inside Anna, a jagged memory she had worked so hard to forget. She was 6 again, standing in her neighbor's backyard, frozen in terror as a snarling dog lunged toward her. She had felt its teeth scrape her skin, and had heard her own scream pierce the air. The memory clawed at her now, vivid and paralyzing. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps. Every rational part of her screamed to turn back, to flee from the danger before her. But then her gaze fell once more on the shepherd's desperate eyes. This wasn't the same. This wasn't violence. This was fear, hunger, and a will to survive. Shaking, Anna steeled herself against the past. She wouldn't run this time. Slowly, deliberately, Anna slid her gloves off, letting them fall into the snow. Her fingers immediately stung from the cold, but she didn't flinch. She knew what she was doing wasn't smart, it wasn't safe, but sometimes the heart demanded risks the mind couldn't explain. She crouched low, her knees sinking into the slush, and extended her bare hand toward the German shepherd. Her movements were steady, non-threatening, and almost ritualistic. The dog's body remained taut, muscles quivering under his thin coat. His eyes darted from her face to her hand, his instincts warring against his exhaustion. Anna kept her hand outstretched, palm open, offering not just warmth but trust, fragile, trembling trust, in the middle of a world gone cold. "Hey, buddy," she whispered, her voice barely a thread. "I'm not here to hurt you." Minutes dragged by, each a second thick with tension. Snowflakes clung to Anna's eyelashes, her outstretched hand trembling slightly from the cold. Still, she didn't move, didn't flinch, just waited, patient and steady. The shepherd shifted ever so slightly, his paws sinking deeper into the snow. His ears twitched. His breathing, shallow and uneven, fogged the air between them. He didn't come closer, but he didn't pull away either, and that was enough. Anna sensed the invisible thread weaving between them, thin as a spider's silk, delicate as the promise of spring in a frozen world. It wasn't accepted, not yet, but it was a start, and sometimes hope was born from the smallest, quietest things. Anna's legs ached, her fingers numb, but she stayed kneeling in the snow, refusing to retreat. A part of her wanted to run back to safety, to warmth, to certainty. But another part, the deeper, truer part, knew she couldn't leave him behind. She saw in the shepherd not just a creature abandoned by the world, but a reflection of her own loneliness, her own quiet battles fought in silence. Compassion anchored her there in that frozen moment. "I'm not going anywhere," she whispered into the wind, the promise carried by the storm. Anna shifted ever so slightly, resting her hand on the icy ground, an offering of both surrender and commitment. The shepherd, ribs heaving with shallow breaths, lowered his head a fraction, his nose twitching toward her outstretched fingers. In the midst of the swirling chaos, Anna made a silent vow. Whatever it took, whatever it cost, she wouldn't leave him. Their journey together, uncertain, fragile, and full of promise, had just begun. Every day, as the evening sky blushed with the soft hues of twilight, Anna's footsteps echoed through the empty park. With each step, her heart thudded with a mixture of anticipation and uncertainty. The paper bag in her hands crinkled softly as she walked toward the same bench, her eyes scanning the shadows. There, beneath the old oak tree, she knew he would be waiting. Ranger, the dog who had once been a shadow in the distance but now felt like a fragile thread of connection. Each visit was an offering, food, patience, and a silent wish that he would let her in. Anna wasn't sure what she was hoping for, maybe just the smallest sign that she wasn't alone in this world. She sat, watching the wind stir the fallen leaves, waiting for a flicker of movement that might turn into a deeper connection. The days blended together in a blur of soft words and cautious gestures. As Anna placed the food down, she began to speak softly, almost as if the air itself could carry her words to him. She told him of her childhood, how she used to wish for a dog to keep her company, someone loyal, someone who wouldn't leave. She spoke of loneliness, of dreams deferred, of moments she felt lost in the world. Ranger sat, watching her from a distance, his amber eyes glimmering with suspicion, yet something in his gaze shifted. He didn't approach, but he stayed, just out of reach, listening to her voice as it cracked in the cold. It was a fragile beginning, but it was a beginning nonetheless. The evening came with a bite in the air, the sky painted with the colors of a setting sun, and Anna knew it was time. She had been waiting for this moment, gathering courage with each passing day. She knelt down, the cold bench creaking beneath her, and with a soft smile that reached her eyes, she called out to him. "Ranger," she whispered, the name like a promise, a wish that this dog would be something more than just a stranger in the park. His ears perked at the sound, but he didn't approach. Still, Anna knew it was a step. A small one, but a step, and she would be patient. Patience had always been her strength. Anna's heart ached as she saw the deep-rooted fear in Ranger's eyes. It wasn't just hesitation, it was pure terror. Every slight movement of her hand, every shift in her position, caused him to flinch, to dart away with the speed of someone who had been hurt too many times before. Anna understood. She had seen that look in people's eyes when the world had been too harsh, too unforgiving. Trust wasn't just something you gave, it was something you earned. Ranger's history was a mystery to her, but his fear was clear. Every day she worked a little harder, her hands steady, her voice gentle, trying to bridge the distance between them. It was a mountain, and neither of them could climb it alone. One cold evening, Anna made a bold decision. The bag of food was empty, and the air was thick with the promise of snow. She stood, her breath visible in the air, and reached her hand toward Ranger. "Come on," she said softly, hoping he would follow. But as soon as she took a step forward, Ranger stopped, his paws digging into the frozen earth as if rooted by some invisible force. He wasn't ready. She could feel it in the tension of his muscles, the rigidness of his stance. His eyes darted around, unsure of what this new territory meant, and with each step she took, his fear grew. Anna's heart broke. She knelt down beside him, brushing her fingers through the snow, her voice soft as she tried again. "It's okay, we'll go slow." But the Ranger wouldn't move. Not yet. The weight of the world seemed to settle on Anna's shoulders as she stood face to face with her landlord, Mr. Davis, his arms crossed and his gaze sharp. "I don't care what you're doing, miss. If that dog stays here, you're out," he warned, his voice cold. Anna's heart sank, the fragile hope she'd been building for weeks, threatening to collapse in a single moment. She had already moved her things in. Ranger had started coming to her door, waiting for her in the mornings, following her with his eyes. But now it seemed the world outside her little sanctuary was closing in, pushing her into a corner. She couldn't lose him, not after all they had been through. "Please," she said softly, but the landlord's eyes remained unyielding. As he turned away, Anna's hands trembled. The weight of the threat was real, and the reality of losing Ranger felt unbearable. It happened suddenly. One moment, Anna was walking along the sidewalk, trying to make it to the bus stop before the snowstorm hit. The next, her feet slipped on the slick ice, sending her crashing to the ground with a sickening thud. Pain shot up her side, but it was the cold that truly took her breath away. She closed her eyes, trying to gather herself, but then a sudden warmth. A cold nose nuzzled her hand, gentle but insistent. She looked up, and there was Ranger, standing close, his eyes wide and concerned. His fur was damp from the snow, and his breath fogged the air as he nudged her again. For the first time, he didn't pull away. He didn't hesitate. He was there, choosing to help. Anna's chest tightened with emotion as she gingerly reached out, running her hand through his fur. He was choosing her. He was choosing her. Tears welled up in Anna's eyes as she sat there, her body still aching from the fall, but her heart soaring. She laughed, the sound shaky but full of wonder. She didn't care that it was cold or that she was bruised. She had just realized something so profound. It wasn't just her reaching for him. Ranger had chosen to stay. He had chosen to care. The world around them seemed to fade as she wrapped her arms around him, pressing her cheek into his fur. "Thank you, Ranger," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. This was it. This was the moment that would change everything. The park, once a place of peaceful silence, now felt charged with unease. As Anna walked with Ranger by her side, she noticed something strange. A figure moving just beyond the glow of the street lamp. Her pulse quickened. Another shadow. Another watchful presence. Ranger's ears perked, his body tense, and as the figure moved closer, his growl rumbled low from his throat. Anna's heart raced. Something was wrong. Ranger was alert, his protective instincts fully engaged. He stepped in front of her, guarding her from the unknown. "What is it, boy?" Anna whispered, her hand trembling as she reached for his collar. This was no longer just a walk in the park. They were facing something else, something dangerous. Later that night, Anna stood by the window, looking out at the empty streets. Her thoughts were scattered, her mind a whirlwind of uncertainty. Ranger was by her side, his growls soft but persistent. They were no longer alone in the world. As the night deepened, Anna double-checked the locks on the doors and windows. She could hear Ranger's growls in the silence, each low rumble matching the thumping of her heart. There was danger outside, but she wasn't alone anymore. With Ranger by her side, she felt a little less afraid. Together, they would face whatever came next. In the days that followed, Anna and Ranger grew closer. The bond between them deepened, and she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. But even as their trust blossomed, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that something darker was on the horizon. She didn't know who was watching or why, but she could feel the weight of the unknown pressing against them. And she knew, as sure as the sun would rise, that their journey wasn't over yet. The world felt oddly quiet as Anna walked home, the chill of the evening air mingling with the comforting rhythm of Ranger's paws padding along beside her. But that peace shattered in an instant. Tires screamed against the asphalt. A dark van veering dangerously to a halt, its engine roaring to a stop with a violent screech. Anna's breath caught in her throat as she instinctively pulled Ranger closer, her eyes narrowing in suspicion. Something about the van's abrupt arrival felt wrong. Her heart skipped a beat, the evening's tranquility now replaced with an ominous, thick tension. She froze, sensing danger before it even fully manifested. The van doors flung open with a metallic slam, and without a second's hesitation, two figures burst out. Their movements were swift and coordinated, like predators on a hunt. Anna's eyes widened in horror as they made a beeline for Ranger, reaching out with outstretched hands. She couldn't process the terror fast enough. The men were upon them before she could even form a coherent thought. Her protective instincts flared, but fear rooted her feet to the ground as her mind scrambled for a solution. In the blink of an eye, Anna acted on pure instinct. She stepped forward, her body blocking the men's path, her voice a sharp, desperate cry, "No, leave him alone!" Her heart pounded in her chest, every beat thunderous as she faced these strangers. The men were taller, stronger, but Anna didn't hesitate. The idea of someone hurting Ranger, the dog who had stood by her side through thick and thin, filled her with an overwhelming surge of protection. She wasn't going to let them take him. Panic gripped her throat, but she forced herself to scream, loudly, desperately, "Help! Someone, please." Her voice echoed through the empty streets, the cold, desolate night swallowing her cries. Her call for help felt hopeless, falling into the silence like a forgotten prayer. No one came. The world around her remained eerily quiet, leaving only the harsh breaths of the men and the strained sound of Ranger's growls to fill the air. But then, something in Ranger changed. His growl started low, deep in his chest, a rumble that signaled something more primal awakening. His fur bristled as his body tensed, every muscle coiled with purpose. And then, in a heartbeat, he lunged forward, his teeth bared in a snarl, his powerful frame moving with the force Anna hadn't seen before. The men faltered, shocked by his sudden aggression, but Ranger's protective instinct had no hesitation. He wasn't just fighting for himself, he was fighting for Anna, the one person who had shown him nothing but love and trust. The attackers recoiled, cursing under their breath as they stepped back from the snarling dog. The Ranger wasn't backing down. He snapped at the air with sharp, biting force, his barks echoing through the streets like a warning. His courage was unmatched, the loyalty he had to Anna shining through every growl and snap. The men hesitated, realizing the dog wasn't going to be intimidated. Ranger's determination filled Anna with a sense of awe. This was the bond they shared. It was unbreakable. Fear continued to claw at Anna's insides, but she knew she had to act. With her heart racing, she fumbled for her phone, her fingers trembling as she dialed 911. Her vision blurred slightly with anxiety, but she steadied herself. She spoke quickly, breathlessly into the phone, her voice cracking with panic. "Please, there's 2 men. They're trying to take my dog. I need help." Her voice barely held together, but she couldn't lose focus. The Ranger was fighting for them both. A sharp cry of pain escaped Ranger's throat as one of the men finally managed to land a blow. An ugly, brutal strike across his side. Blood began to stain his coat, but the dog didn't retreat. Even with the injury, Ranger planted himself firmly in front of Anna, his stance unwavering. His body shook with the effort, but his eyes remained fierce, locked on the attackers with unyielding determination. Anna felt a wave of sorrow and admiration for him, as if he were saying, "I won't leave you. Not ever." Anna rushed to his side, her hands trembling as she clutched his fur, her words coming out in soft whispers. "I'll never let them hurt you, Ranger, I promise. I'll protect you." She buried her face in his fur, feeling his warmth despite the danger. She could feel the rise and fall of his chest, his breath ragged and strained. He had saved her so many times before, and now it was her turn to keep that promise, no matter what it took. She could hear the sirens in the distance, but time felt like it was standing still. As the distant wail of sirens began to cut through the quiet night, a wave of relief washed over Anna. But even as the flashing lights neared, Ranger remained standing firm, his body battered but unbroken. His protective stance hadn't wavered, even in the face of pain. He was the guardian, the protector, and Anna's heart swelled with gratitude. The danger was fading, but their bond was now stronger than ever. The sirens drew closer, and Anna felt the weight of the world lift off her shoulders as help arrived. The night air was thick with tension. Anna's heart hammered in her chest as she held Ranger, his trembling body pressed against her, trying to comfort him after the brutal struggle. Just as the attackers tried to drag him away, the unmistakable sound of sirens broke through the chaos. The police van screeched to a halt, the doors slamming open with a sharp, metallic noise that echoed through the alleyway. Officers flooded the scene, their presence overwhelming the attackers in an instant. Within moments, the perpetrators were subdued, their desperate cries swallowed by the flashing lights and the buzz of police radios. Anna's grip on Ranger tightened as she whispered soothing words, her eyes brimming with tears of relief. They had made it. They were safe. Anna collapsed onto the cold concrete, her hands shaking as they cupped Ranger's face. The fear, the adrenaline, all of it drained from her in that moment. Tears streamed down her face, mingling with the dirt on her cheeks as she held him close. Ranger, still trembling, leaned against her, his warm body a comfort against the cold of the night. The police officers slowly approached, their concern evident, but Anna could barely tear her eyes away from Ranger's face. He was alive. He was hers now. And together they would heal, no matter what came next. As Anna clung to Ranger, the police officers began to piece together the terrible truth. One officer, his voice low and sympathetic, approached Anna. "He's been through more than you can imagine," he said, nodding toward Ranger. "He was found in a dogfighting ring. They were trying to reclaim him, but he's free now." The revelation hit Anna like a punch to the gut. She looked at Ranger, his eyes filled with fear, yet trust, and the pieces of his past started to fall into place. The scars on his body, the terror in his eyes. Ranger had suffered far too much. But he was here now, and she would never let him go. A week had passed since the terrifying night, but the weight of it still lingered. Anna sat in the adoption office, her hands trembling as she signed the papers that would officially make Ranger hers. The ink blotted on the page, but her vision blurred with tears. She looked down at Ranger, who was resting his head on her lap, and whispered softly, "We're a family now." The woman at the desk smiled, sensing Anna's overwhelming emotion. Ranger looked up at her, his eyes now filled with gratitude and peace. This was it, his new life, the one he deserved. No more pain, no more fear, just love from here on out. As Anna walked into her apartment that evening, Ranger by her side, she was ready to face the battle with her landlord. The no-pet rule had always been strict, but today was different. The landlord stood at the door, his arms crossed, but his eyes softened when he saw Ranger. "You know," he said quietly, "maybe I was too hard on you." With a small nod, he tore up the old lease agreement and handed Anna a new one. It was official. Ranger was home, truly home. Ranger's transformation was nothing short of remarkable. Within months, he'd undergone extensive training, learning to be a therapy dog. Today, he wore his therapy vest proudly as he walked beside Anna through the hospital corridors. His steps were steady, his once uneasy gaze now calm and confident. The patients smiled as he passed, some reaching out to stroke his soft fur, finding solace in his gentle presence. Anna watched with pride, knowing that Ranger's journey from survivor to healer had only just begun. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Anna sat on her porch, Ranger's head resting gently in her lap. The world around them was quiet, the hum of the day replaced by the peaceful sounds of the night. She stroked his fur, reflecting on the long road they'd traveled together. They had both been broken, but now, in each other's arms, they had found healing. Anna looked down at Ranger, her heart swelling with gratitude. In saving him, she had found a piece of herself that she never knew was missing. Sometimes, the ones who seem the most broken are the very ones who save us in ways we never expect. The night was still, the only sound the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional chirp of a distant bird. Anna sat on the porch, Ranger's head resting gently in her lap. His warm, steady presence grounded her as she looked up at the star-filled sky, her heart full in a way it hadn't been for years. She had come so far since the day she'd found him, broken, scared, and searching for something she couldn't even name. In his eyes, she saw the reflection of her own pain, her own struggles. Yet, despite it all, Ranger had never given up. His loyalty, his ability to forgive, and his capacity for love had healed wounds Anna never realized were so deep. "Thank you, Ranger," she whispered softly, her voice barely audible in the quiet of the night. Words seemed insufficient to convey the depth of her gratitude. He had been the healer when she had thought she needed no saving. There was no grand gesture, no fanfare, just this quiet, unspoken connection. She didn't need words to understand the depth of their bond. It was a bond forged in pain, yes, but also in resilience, in trust, and in love. The healing had happened in the small moments, when Ranger had comforted her in silence, when he had nuzzled her hand after a hard day, or when he had simply been there, by her side, through it all. Anna smiled, the softest hint of a tear threatening to escape as she thought of all the progress Ranger had made. When she first met him, he was a shadow of the dog he was meant to be. His eyes haunted, his body scarred from the abuse he had endured. But now, he walked proudly at her side, his steps strong and sure. It wasn't just a journey of survival. It was a journey of transformation. Ranger had gone from a dog who had been discarded and forgotten to a symbol of strength and resilience. His bravery wasn't just in the way he had faced his past. It was in the way he trusted Anna, the way he loved without hesitation, and the way he gave his heart so freely, despite all he had suffered. Anna remembered the moment he first wagged his tail without fear, the first time he sat by her side without a hint of hesitation. Each small victory, each step forward, proved that second chances weren't just about surviving, they were about thriving. Ranger had shown her that even after the darkest of times, there was always room for a new beginning. His journey from broken to brave was a reminder that with love, patience, and understanding, true healing could happen. That no soul was beyond saving, and that with enough heart, anyone could find their way back. As Anna looked down at Ranger, she saw not just the dog who had changed her life, but the reflection of herself. She had started this journey thinking she was the one doing the saving, but now she knew better. In helping Ranger heal, she had found a way to heal herself, too. It was funny how life worked sometimes. She had thought she needed to rescue him, to fix the pieces of his broken heart. But in the end, it was Ranger who had reminded her that healing wasn't just about fixing what was broken. It was about learning to live with it, to love it, and to grow stronger because of it. Together, they had learned that sometimes the best way to heal wasn't to fix everything, but to love each other through the cracks, through the scars. It was in the imperfection of their bond that true healing had happened. As she stroked his fur, the same fur that had once been matted and dirty, Anna felt a deep peace settle in her chest. Their journey had not been easy, and it still wasn't. But it was theirs. And in that quiet moment under the stars, Anna realized that true healing happened when two broken hearts found each other. When two souls, scarred yet hopeful, came together and chose to fight for a better tomorrow. Ranger had given her that gift, and in turn, she had given him the love he so desperately needed. In the process, they had saved each other,